On a night meant for love and celebration, the ocean quietly claimed a secret it would hide for 12 years.
At first glance, Daniel and Rebecca Hargrove looked like any other young couple embarking on the honeymoon of their dreams. The silver crown stretched before them, gleaming in the late afternoon sun, promising adventure and escape. But behind the smiles and neatly packed luggage, subtle currents of tension had already begun to form. Friends would later describe the couple as polite, careful, and private, but the luxury and calm of the cruise masked a future none could yet imagine. Out on the open Atlantic, the Silver Crown appeared as a floating city, isolated from the world and indifferent to the lives on board. Hundreds of passengers moved through its polished corridors, unaware that a tragedy was quietly taking shape. The vastness of the ocean offered both freedom and concealment, a backdrop that would later make uncovering the truth remarkably difficult. What looked like a perfect setting for romance would become the stage of a carefully concealed crime. For a few fleeting days, the couple appeared carefree, moving together across the upper deck as the ocean stretched infinitely in every direction. They laughed, posed for photographs, and engaged politely with staff and fellow passengers. Yet beneath the surface of their apparent happiness, subtle hints of anxiety were recorded in private journals and bank statements. Daniel's secretive calls and financial transfers had already begun to lay the groundwork for something that would shatter this image of serenity. The casino lounge, with its dim lights and the muted clinking of chips, was one of the last places Daniel was publicly seen. Witnesses remembered him standing near the blackjack tables, speaking quietly with two men whose identities were never fully verified. Even in the soft glow of the chandeliers, subtle movements hinted at purpose. Little did anyone know, these ordinary interactions were pieces of a puzzle that would only be fully understood years later, when the ocean finally revealed its secrets. An hour later, Rebecca was seen alone on the promenade deck, her gaze fixed on the endless darkness of the Atlantic. The night was calm, almost serene, yet it carried a quiet menace. No one noticed the subtle tension in her posture, the way she seemed aware of something unsettling but could not articulate it. This moment, fleeting and silent, would become one of the last confirmed sightings before the young couple vanished without a trace. The following morning, their cabin was found empty, a scene of eerie normalcy. Clothes neatly hung, luggage untouched, passports in place. Everything remained exactly as they had left it. No signs of struggle, no note, no explanation. For investigators years later, this quiet order became one of the first clues that the disappearance had been carefully orchestrated. The absence of chaos spoke louder than any scream ever could. Back in Miami, the terminal buzzed with disembarking passengers, but two were conspicuously absent. Daniel and Rebecca were officially missing, and the authorities scrambled to piece together a timeline. Yet the vastness of the sea, the anonymity of the cruise, and the limitations of 1980s surveillance meant that the initial investigation would be slow, incomplete, and riddled with unanswered questions. The ocean had swallowed not just bodies, but clarity itself. Investigators began poring over the Silver Crown's logs, passenger lists, and crew schedules, seeking any fragment that might explain the disappearance. They noted minor inconsistencies, unscheduled slowdowns, crew movements, and vague reports of maintenance activities. At first, these anomalies seemed inconsequential, lost in the chaos of routine operations. But later analysis would reveal that each irregularity was a thread leading closer to the truth of what had happened that night. 12 years after the disappearance, the ocean finally returned a fragment of the past. On a remote stretch of Barbuda, skeletal remains were discovered, half buried in the sand, weathered by time and tide. Forensic analysis confirmed the identity of Rebecca Hargrove. This discovery transformed a cold case into a criminal investigation, forcing authorities to reconsider the sequence of events aboard the Silver Crown and revealing the calculated nature of a crime that had remained hidden for over a decade. Inside the forensic laboratory, experts meticulously examined the remains, noting fractures and tool marks inconsistent with accidental drowning. Each observation painted a grim picture of deliberate violence, dismemberment, and concealment. The ocean had preserved not just the bones, but a story of methodical planning. Analysts pieced together timelines, ocean current models, and evidence of premeditation, slowly unraveling a narrative of betrayal that had remained silent for 12 long years, until science gave it a voice. Long before the tragedy unfolded, Daniel Hargrove displayed an unusual interest in the inner workings of the ship. Alone in his cabin, he pored over the vessel's blueprints, tracing corridors, maintenance access points, and escape routes. At the time, it seemed nothing more than curiosity or meticulous planning for comfort and safety. Yet in retrospect, every movement and every line on those plans hints at forethought with sinister intent. He studied how crew areas connected to hidden chutes and service corridors, how isolated zones could conceal human activity, and where the ship's eyes, cameras, crew patrols, and guest traffic were weakest. Investigators later identified these studies as evidence of premeditation, illustrating a calculated understanding of opportunity, risk, and isolation. Daniel's obsession with details, combined with knowledge of the ship's secret passages, allowed him to orchestrate a crime that would go unnoticed, making the seemingly peaceful cruise a stage for something far darker than any passenger could imagine. The narrow maintenance corridors of the Silver Crown were designed for functionality, not visibility. Exposed pipes, low lighting, and labyrinthine twists gave the crew freedom to move unnoticed. But these same passages became critical in understanding the Hargrove case. Investigators later realized that the perpetrators used these corridors to isolate Rebecca from public areas, allowing access to the disposal chutes without being seen. The corridor's design, coupled with minimal night security, provided a perfect environment for a carefully executed plan. Forensic teams identified tool marks, scuffing on floor panels, and slight abrasions consistent with a human body being moved, all within these hidden pathways. The quiet efficiency of these corridors demonstrates how ordinary infrastructure, combined with human calculation, can conceal extraordinary criminal acts, turning the ship itself into a silent witness to events that remained hidden for years. In the months before the honeymoon, Daniel's behavior hinted at secretive planning. He frequently made late-night calls from payphones to offshore numbers in Panama and the Cayman Islands. These calls were brief, deliberate, and meticulously timed to avoid detection. While no one at the time understood their significance, investigators later traced these numbers to accounts connected to payments for assistance aboard the cruise. This financial trail revealed premeditation. Daniel had not only considered the logistics of isolation and disposal, but also arranged incentives for accomplices who could aid his plan. The calls demonstrate a chilling foresight, as if he were constructing a chain of actions in perfect sequence, anticipating variables, and ensuring compliance without leaving evidence that could be easily traced back to him. Every call, every transfer, every precaution paints a picture of someone orchestrating not just a disappearance, but a crime designed to remain invisible. Rebecca's journals became one of the most crucial pieces of evidence when the case reopened. They revealed a growing sense of unease in the days leading up to the disappearance. She documented anxiety, subtle mistrust, and moments when she considered leaving the cruise early. Each entry highlighted her awareness of inconsistencies in Daniel's explanations about work, finances, and their shared future. Investigators noted that her instincts were accurate. Her concerns foreshadowed a calculated betrayal. Beyond personal reflections, her notes contained observations about passengers, crew interactions, and even minor ship irregularities. These details, seemingly mundane at the time, later corroborated forensic and investigative findings. Rebecca's meticulous record-keeping shows a mind attuned to subtle patterns and risk, a stark contrast to Daniel's manipulation. Her writings provided context, emotional depth, and insight into what made her disappearance both tragic and preventable, illustrating how awareness alone is sometimes insufficient against carefully executed malevolence. Forensic reconstruction revealed how every step of the crime was executed with chilling precision. By examining tool marks, scuffing, and traces of movement, investigators mapped the route taken from public spaces to hidden corridors and disposal points. Every action appeared deliberate. Rebecca's separation, incapacitation, and disposal were methodical, suggesting careful planning, not impulsive behavior. Analysts concluded that the crime leveraged both human oversight and structural vulnerabilities of the ship. The reconstruction process itself provided insights into timing, personnel involvement, and the careful orchestration of events to minimize detection. It became clear that this was not merely a disappearance, but a calculated elimination, executed with an understanding of human behavior, nautical environment, and forensic limitations of the era. The silent corridors, the shadows, and the hidden chutes all became a testament to the planning behind a crime long concealed by the ocean. When the fishermen discovered skeletal remains on a remote Barbuda beach 12 years after the disappearance, the case shifted dramatically. Forensic teams confirmed the identity of Rebecca Hargrove, revealing that she had been killed, dismembered, and disposed of with intent to conceal. The ocean, over more than a decade, had both preserved and transported evidence. Analysts examined weather patterns, tidal shifts, and coastal currents to understand how the remains arrived at this location. Each detail, from bone erosion to subtle fractures, provided insight into the methods used to mask the crime. This discovery proved that what had once been a mysterious disappearance was in fact a premeditated murder, and it forced authorities to revisit every assumption made in the original investigation. The beach became a silent witness to acts that the sea had carried across years and miles, quietly waiting for discovery. Inside the forensic laboratory, each fragment of bone was a clue. Experts meticulously examined fractures, sharp force tool marks, and signs of water erosion, reconstructing the sequence of events that led to Rebecca's death. They determined that trauma occurred prior to ocean immersion, revealing the deliberate nature of the crime. Skeletal analysis, combined with oceanographic modeling, allowed investigators to trace her remains back to the ship, connecting decades-old evidence to the timeline of disappearance. Every observation confirmed meticulous planning. Isolation, incapacitation, dismemberment, and disposal had all been executed with forethought. The laboratory, usually a place of technical analysis, became a stage for silent storytelling, translating physical remnants into a narrative of betrayal, greed, and calculated cruelty. In these sterile surroundings, the true depth of human malice finally came to light. To understand the crime fully, investigators meticulously mapped movements aboard the Silver Crown. Every crew assignment, passenger sighting, and corridor access point was charted. Red strings connected timelines, highlighting overlaps, anomalies, and potential opportunities for isolation. This mapping revealed patterns that were invisible in individual statements or isolated logs. The detailed visual reconstruction allowed authorities to hypothesize exactly how Rebecca had been separated and why the absence of witnesses was no accident. These charts, combined with forensic findings and oceanographic data, painted a comprehensive picture. The disappearance was neither random nor accidental, but a carefully orchestrated act executed with precision, patience, and an understanding of human behavior that would challenge investigators for years. Financial records revealed the motive behind the crime. Daniel's accounts contained irregular transfers, offshore deposits, and unexplained sums, indicating a premeditated plan involving both opportunity and gain. Life insurance policies, opened weeks before the wedding, further suggested careful orchestration. Investigators concluded that the crime was motivated not merely by impulse, but by financial pressure, regulatory scrutiny, and the desire to protect personal assets. The documents, once mundane ledger entries, became key evidence, illustrating how greed intertwined with planning to create a lethal scenario. By analyzing these records alongside ship movements and crew involvement, authorities were able to reconstruct not just what happened, but why. A narrative where finance, deception, and human betrayal intersected with devastating consequence. Victor Lorne's testimony became the linchpin of the investigation. In a tense, dimly lit room, he described every step he was asked to perform, the coordination with Daniel, and the payment received for complicity. While claiming ignorance of the full plan, his admission confirmed the method of disposal and timing of the crime. Investigators cross-referenced his statements with forensic and financial data, each detail aligning with physical evidence. His narrative highlighted the cold precision with which the crime was executed, the reliance on human cooperation, and the exploitation of systemic gaps aboard the ship. Lorne's confession transformed assumptions into factual sequences, bridging decades of uncertainty and solidifying the case against a suspect who had remained unseen yet omnipresent in every calculated move. The courtroom was a stage where years of secrecy and deception finally met scrutiny. Victor Lorne, seated on the stand, recounted in painstaking detail his involvement in the crime. Every movement aboard the Silver Crown, every corridor traversed, and every act of concealment was meticulously described. Forensic exhibits, photographs, and oceanographic models were presented as physical proof of a premeditated murder that had remained hidden for 12 years. The judge listened attentively, absorbing testimony that blended meticulous planning with human failure. For the families of Daniel and Rebecca Hargrove, it was a mixture of relief and heartbreak. Lorne's words confirmed suspicions and clarified ambiguities, but they could not restore what was lost. The legal proceedings illustrated how evidence, patience, and persistence can pierce even the most carefully constructed veil of secrecy, but also highlighted the frustrating reality that not all perpetrators would face full justice. The courtroom became a solemn reminder of human vulnerability, manipulation, and the enduring impact of crime on those left behind. The ocean, at once beautiful and indifferent, had been both accomplice and witness to the Hargrove tragedy. For 12 long years, it carried secrets across thousands of miles, concealing evidence beneath its waves. When Rebecca's remains finally washed ashore on a remote Barbuda beach, the ocean's silent testimony revealed a story of calculated betrayal. Investigators used oceanographic models to understand the currents, tidal flows, and seasonal patterns that had transported the remains from the ship's disposal point to the shoreline. This revelation highlighted not just the meticulousness of the crime, but also the ocean's unpredictable role in preserving and revealing truth. The same vast expanse that had allowed a crime to remain hidden now illuminated it, reminding all who study it that the natural world can both obscure and reveal, protect and expose. The sea remained impartial, a silent observer to the consequences of human ambition, deception, and malice. Inside the evidence room, decades of meticulous documentation told a story of crime, investigation, and patience. Each envelope contained fragments. Each photograph captured moments frozen in time. Each labeled bag represented a clue carefully preserved. Investigators reflected on the enormous effort required to piece together events spanning more than a decade. The skeletal remains, financial records, journal entries, and ship schematics formed a mosaic of deliberate planning and human treachery. The room, quiet and orderly, contrasted sharply with the chaos and violence of the crime itself. Analysts understood that while human lives could be lost, evidence had a resilience that could outlast time, tide, and deception. The evidence room became more than storage. It was a testament to methodical diligence, scientific rigor, and the relentless pursuit of truth, demonstrating that even the most carefully concealed crimes can eventually be reconstructed when patience and precision converge. Years after the discovery, a small memorial was set up on the remote Barbuda beach, where Rebecca's remains had washed ashore. A framed photograph, flowers, and handwritten notes offered a tangible connection to a life taken far too soon. For friends, family, and even investigators, the memorial represented both grief and closure, a space to reflect on the consequences of betrayal, greed, and meticulous calculation. While justice had been partially served through Victor Lorne's testimony, the absence of Daniel Hargrove left a lingering sense of injustice. The ocean, which had hidden her for over a decade, now bore silent witness to the memory of a young woman whose life had been stolen. The memorial became a symbol of remembrance, resilience, and the enduring need to confront human cruelty, even when perpetrators evade full accountability. In the quiet aftermath, investigators, families, and the public reflected on the larger implications of the Hargrove case. Rebecca's journals, financial documents, and forensic reports now coexisted as silent storytellers of a carefully orchestrated crime. Daniel's absence, even in death, served as a reminder that justice is often imperfect. The ocean, the cruise ship, and the hidden corridors had all played roles, revealing the lengths to which ambition, secrecy, and deceit can extend. Yet the meticulous documentation, patient investigation, and eventual discovery of evidence offered a form of resolution. The case underscored the fragile nature of trust, the potency of human cunning, and the enduring power of truth to surface, even from the depths of time and tide. It is a story of betrayal, loss, and the complex dance between justice and circumstance, a cautionary tale echoing across years and oceans, urging vigilance, reflection, and awareness of the darkness that can lurk behind familiar faces.